Hi folks, and welcome to the two Maesters. So it's myself, Joshua, and also my fellow Maester, Morgan. And for this week, we're going to be focusing on just talking about things that we've seen for the last year, because it's also coming up to our first year anniversary as well.
Oh, isn't that cute?
Yeah.
Oh, baby. Glad you remembered as well. I've got to say, it feels weird with you introducing it. Don't know how I feel about this. How do the fans feel? Who knows?
Yeah, they'll probably be like, Josh should do this from now on.
Yeah. Oh, well, I see how it is. I'm going to start my own podcast. Why am I still here?
And then we'll also go into like things that we're looking forward to later this year. There's so many stuff for sci-fi and fantasy coming out for this year, and it is a very good year for sci-fi. And we'll just go into that and discuss that. And just to kick off, Morgan, how has your week been and how's today been?
Oh, thanks for finally asking. Yeah, my week's been good. Got a promotion at work, so very happy about that. In terms of my week, it's been nice. Watched Eurovision on the weekend. Did you watch Eurovision?
I missed most of it until like
what a tragedy.
The end.
Where you saw Britain sing.
Yeah, I did. And I think
England. Yeah.
I think one thing I did like about it is that it kind of had the Eurovision feel of old, because like there was a period of time where like Eurovision didn't feel like Eurovision for a while, and it kind of felt for me that people weren't watching it as much. But it seemed like this year and last year people actually were watching it, because like even at work people were discussing it. I went out to a pub with friends, they were discussing it there as well, and it felt like more people were like watching it. And I think maybe because of like, one, the song was pretty good, and I think just in general, like because of like the Eurovision during COVID, and also the fact that Ukraine won,
Russia, yeah,
and then the fact that it was like a big moment as well when Ukraine won. I think that was 2 years ago. So now the viewership's really gone up, and actually people are starting to care about it more.
Yeah, I guess it gives it more publicity. The fact that because Ukraine won it, but for very dangerous reasons, they couldn't host it. Like, imagine trying to host a Eurovision and just bullets are flying around. Like, then they host it in the UK, and I thought it was quite nice, the touches they put. Like, they had a Ukrainian host as well as English hosts. They made sure that Ukraine got like a lot of shout outs. Like, there were a lot of Ukrainian people in the crowd and stuff, and they made me feel very proud to be British, just hosting the Eurovision contest. Although also maybe like a bit ashamed as well. I felt like were we being a bit cheeky and trying to like show off the UK? This should be Ukraine's Eurovision, but we were like, we'll check out this place in Britain, check out that place. But then at the same time, it was £20 million to host Eurovision. So.
Yeah, and I think part of it, the budget is like, how much can we pump towards the tourist industry as well as crowning a king this year as well? Come to Britain, not just for Eurovision, not just for the king, but look at these wonderful places you can come and visit and spend money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got to admit, it's been a very big year.
Yeah.
For the UK. Like, was it the year before? Was it this year or the year before that the Queen died?
Last year the Queen died. Yeah.
Oh, fine. Well,
October. I believe it was in October. Yeah, late September or early October.
Yeah, it just feels like this part since 2020. It just feels like everything's been on overdrive, and I get not just in the UK, but I feel like because I live in the UK, like. Brexit, COVID, actual Brexit happening, Queen dying, Eurovision. Well, I mean, Eurovision's very regular, but bloody hell, what a year it's been. And coincidence, we started this podcast and all that. Well, apart from COVID, all that stuff's been happening.
Yeah.
Did you see the link? Conspiracy theorists, do something about it. Put some stuff out there on the internet somewhere. But yeah, let's start with, looking at the podcast, what have we done so far? I mean, it's almost a year anniversary. We originally started doing House of the Dragon, episode by episode reviews, but then, like all good things, it came to an end, and I'm quite sad because I think the next series is due to come out 2024, and I'm like, oh goodness, that's so long to wait. But we've also done specials like Rings of Power, Star Wars, Mandalorian, The Last of Us, The Boys, The Witcher, which is yet to be released. The Game of Thrones episode, which I think is also yet to be released. But we're saving those as little treats for later. What else have we done? We've done a Harry Potter one, which is yet to be released. I feel like we're missing some that we've released.
So I think for us, because we've done very...
Dune.
Yes, Dune, yeah. And we've also done like various Star Wars episodes. So we've got like we had main one looking at the universe, and then there was one that we did for like the Mandalorian, and like I think what surprised me was just looking at how many episodes we have. Like we're almost at like episode 20. Because then I was just thinking to myself,
we're on 24.
24.
Yeah, 24. Fancy that. Well, at least 24 that the public know of.
Because I was just thinking, like, we are heading towards 25 to 30. And, like, one thing to be thankful for our audience and our fans is that I was reading somewhere that most podcasts only last 7 episodes.
Yeah, boy. Let the good times roll. That's what I'm on about. They can't stop us.
And the fact that we've tripled that and we've almost now quadrupled it, like, I think just a thank to our audience as well, and also to you, Morgan, like putting in the time.
Thanks. Well, I love the trophy you and our overlord Jeffrey got us. The would pick up Mike Jeffrey. Pick up the Jeffrey. Pick up the Mike. Oops! Don't pick up Jeffrey. He would like that. But yeah, no, it's true. We have gone really far. And, we've started off with just like 2-figure views. Like first episode is 60 views. Well, actually, that was released 1 year ago, so I think we've actually gone past our anniversary. Or, yeah, maybe. Oh, you forgot about it. Well, I forgot about it too. And then it zigzagged on like our 4th episode. We had 13K views. Like, holy cow, that's a lot. Then it went back into 2-figure views. Then 2.3K on our episode 8. Then back to 2-figure views. But then it keeps zigzagging. And then somewhere about after episode 16, we started getting into like thousands of views.
Yeah.
So the 2 Maesters take 2 to 7 seas. That was a great episode with the dear, wonderful Esther. She is actually a pirate, by the way. Be careful. We got 4.6K, and that's fantastic, And like we've done a Dune one, 2.2K. We're really hitting it off, you know.
Yeah, and just like a big thanks to our audience for watching us. And also I think one thing that it did show, like staying at it. Like we could have been like, after the first few episodes, especially when we didn't have the studio, that this wasn't for us. We didn't see the numbers, but I think like both of us like sticking with it. And I think also like bringing in guests, which is really nice. It brings in a whole nother flavor, especially when I think the good thing we've had is like passionate guests. Guests who are really passionate and knowledgeable about the subject. And I think that really then pushes onto the fans, because then the fans are like, so they actually know what they're talking about. And then they then end up watching our show more, because it's not like hearsay. It's more of like, no, this person is dedicated to the universe that I love as well, so I might as well watch them. And I think that's a key thing for our success.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't bring on a guest who's not passionate, because imagine we just brought on someone and they're like, why am I here?
I thought it was here to talk about politics.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you talking about Lord of the Rings?
Maybe for April Fool's Day we should bring someone. Well, we missed April Fool's this year, but bring someone on and just get them to talk about something else. Like someone who hates Star Wars but loves Star Trek. Get them on.
Yeah. I thought this was the Star Trek podcast. What am I talking about Star Wars for? That would actually be hilarious. Yeah, like just seeing their face on camera, like when they realize and they clock, wait a second, I thought the message said Star Trek. Then doubting themselves, did I read it properly or did I read it?
And we can gaslight them. We're like, no, we definitely said Star Wars. Yeah. Like, what the hell? Yeah, easy. It would be, just thinking of a future idea. It would be really good to have like, I was gonna say argument podcast, but like battle podcasts, like someone who really loves Star Wars versus someone who really likes Star Trek, and why they're better. Because or whichever's better. Because I could think of like, why do I prefer Andor to the Mandalorian? Because it's darker, it's more realistic.
Yeah, I agree.
It's less silly. I just don't. I like the Mandalorian, but it's very. It has a childish sort of charm to it, which is nice. Yeah. It's an adventure. It's innocent mask. Andor feels like if you took all the Star Wars stuff out of it, it would make a really good. It still makes a really good tale of revolution and rebellion.
Yeah. And I think the reason I really love Andor as well, and I think I would put it like the highest.
Why have we not done an Andor episode?
That is actually something we should look into. Yeah, like the reason why I like it so much is that it, as to your point, take the Star Wars elements away, and it's still a gripping story about how a guy who generally could not care less about a resistance movement, who only is interested in himself and trying to make money.
Yeah, boy, that's what it's all about. Cash money. It's all about making money. Sorry.
And then the funny episode is like when he actually makes the money and then ends up getting arrested for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. Just being caught in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, the wrong time. Do you just think to yourself, like, he could have just... Imagine, like, if he just didn't walk down that street, he wouldn't have joined the resistance. He wouldn't have had need to. He wouldn't have looked back at his life at all. He would have just stayed on spending on that vacation world. And I think the thing I really liked about Andor was that it showed the Empire as not being like complete numpties and actually doing something and actually being competent. And I think that's the main issue that you kind of see that also in like The Mandalorian, especially. You haven't seen the end of season 1, but in general, like stormtroopers
they don't hit anything, do they? Like, what's the point of giving them guns?
Yes.
Just give them like dusters instead. At least they can clean places.
Like, and what's the point of them wearing their armor? It seems like it doesn't stop anything.
Like in the original trilogy, they're fighting against Ewoks that are shooting bows and arrows and throwing stones at them. What is the point of the armor? And then also in Force Awakens, Finn, they put poison gas on the Millennium Falcon to kill off the stormtroopers, and Finn says the rebreathers don't filter out anything. But like, why are they wearing it then? Is it? I mean, you can see in like the original trilogy, you think you can see them on like the Death Star, like out in space. So I guess it's pressurized or something, but it just seems really useless. But anyway, we could talk hours about Star Wars and stuff, But let's think back of our golden moments over this past year. Thank you. As you can see, we've got a big audience of us here who stop applauding very suddenly when I tell them to. What would you say is your favorite moment from what we've been doing?
Favorite moment? You just sprung this question on me. I'm going to have to think deeply for this one. I think my favorite moment...
Or you could say a favorite aspect of what we've been doing. Because you did say you liked having guests on.
Yes, I think my favorite moment is like when a guest says something about something you've watched countless times but you never saw.
What do you mean?
Like, for example...
Oh, what they've pointed out.
Yeah, they pointed out something that you haven't seen or you didn't really pay attention to, and then all of a sudden, like, you see things differently.
Okay, wait, what was there a particular guest or moment?
I think when Dee was on and when we were just talking about when they had the knife out and then the way that she was holding the knife, I hadn't seen it that way. And I think another key thing is like when we had the Harry Potter episode, which will be coming out soon, folks, that if the way that I saw like Snape wasn't the way that our guest saw Snape. And I think that you could argue that he was both those characters. He was both like a complete douche and also a guy who had a troubled past and was struggling with being an undercover evil wizard.
But you call it a double agent.
A double agent, but in fact had some would argue, a heart of gold. But it was also a douche when he didn't need to be.
Ronald Weasley. Yeah, that's a good point. I think my favorite moment would probably be... I think just the Boys podcast quoting, I don't know why, like I usually hate the sound of hearing my voice because I have to listen through all these podcasts and beep out whenever I swear, which is usually me that swears. But listening to the Boys one, I really love doing dramatic readings. So like when Homelander has his birthday celebration, and he's like, this is in the Boys, by the way, He's like, I've had enough. I'm tired of hiding who I am. I'm going to be me. And if they're these big corporations, etc., trying to control me, and if they're trying to control me, you bet damn well they can control you. And I know I'm quoting a bad guy there, but he had a bit of a point. But I always wanted to be an actor when I was younger, and just having the opportunity to do it on here. This podcast just feeds my ego, really. So. Thank you.
Possibly maybe
Great
your acting
acting.
career. Maybe we can get J.J. Abrams to spot something, or maybe Steven Spielberg. Like, oh, Morgan.
Yeah.
There's something about this Morgan guy.
Exactly. That's why I'm here. Or maybe M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, that's I do love his movies, by the way. Okay, quick fire question. What is your favorite cult movie / TV show of all time?
Favorite cult TV show / TV series.
It could be something you mentioned, or it could be something you haven't mentioned, or it could be even a comic. It doesn't have to be necessarily a TV show. Something that's already been like adapted.
I think for me was HBO Rome. So that for me was like, I think because like it was growing up, and I think that was just like the pinnacle, because I didn't know like how good TV shows could be, because I had never watched anything with HBO. Like I'd heard like, you know, The Sopranos when it'd come up on Channel 4, so I'd watch a bit of that. But then when they actually did like Rome, and you saw like at the beginning, at the first episode, when you've got like Julius Caesar in Gaul after his victory, and then like his procession into Rome, like I was thinking like, how can they afford all of this? Like the scenery, the setting as well. The acting was awesome, and funnily enough, the amount of people who are in that go into then Game of Thrones is unbelievable. The guy who plays Julius Caesar, he goes into
Mance Rayder.
Then you've got the guy who plays Brutus. He plays Catelyn's younger brother. What's his name again?
Right, okay.
He's also
Edmund Tully. Wow, how do I
Tully.
remember this useless information?
And then like you've got some of the people in the Senate end up it being in like Game of Thrones as well. And I think it's just like the way that they were able to take a bit of history and then bring in so much like drama, and like the main two characters, which are I know Titus Pullo was he
Ray
the
Stevenson, big dude with the short hair?
Yeah, who funnily enough is now going to be in the Ahsoka series as, you know, that Dark Jedi.
The old one?
The old one. I've forgotten what the other guy was called, but yeah, it was basically following their two stories in the backdrop of like Julius Caesar basically coming to power, coming back from Gaul, defeating Pompey, and then becoming basically the dictator for life. His assassination at the end of season 1. Then season 2, which is basically the aftermath of Julius Caesar's assassination, the fact they read the will and that everything is left to Octavian. Mark Antony's pissed. He's like, how dare Caesar do that to me? I was there in Gaul when we went to Britannia. I was there when we fought Pompey, and you give all the things to Octavian. So he basically is like, you know, sod it, I'm going. Then the fact they then team up to then defeat the Senate army, and then they bring in like the whole thing with Cleopatra, and then the season ending with like Octavian becoming Augustus Caesar, defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and then I think just the way that they ended it, especially the fact that the actual plot around it, so like the main guy,
the two main characters aren't actually, they're just fictional, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're just
fictional
caught
characters
up in these historical events.
And I think that's what I really like about TV series, is like being able to see what the perspective of the individual, like in the Rome series, you actually saw like the street gangs and street life of Rome, which historians have said were really that bad.
And I thought Tottenham as well.
Yeah. And like the fact that there were like, at one point when Pompey and Caesar were fighting each other, that there was so much lawlessness in Rome because everyone had literally like pulled out their soldiers. So Pompey left and pulled out all of his garrison from Rome, and then Julius Caesar was coming. So people were like, "Oh my days, is he going to come and kill everyone?" So there was just mayhem in the city. And then,
because they had those kind of weapons back then. I love this gunshot. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea for an future episode, because I'm a big fan of historical TV shows. Like I love Deutschland 83. That was really good. Well, it will come to my head later. This always happens when I've got to give examples. But yeah, I would like to delve into Rome at some point. So that's one on the list to be added for sure. Like that would be cool to talk about. I think in terms of me, like what my favorite series or movie would have to be. I think for series, it's got to be Futurama. Futurama, I grew up on as a kid. I liked The Simpsons, but Futurama was just classic. So quotable as well. Such memorable characters like Bender. Bite my shiny metal ass. Yeah, the only robot that I've known to drink beer and burp and fart and rob people. Such a different idea of what we normally expect. And it's so goofy, you know. It makes you feel okay to be a nerd, because being goofy is fun. People love goofiness.
Yeah, and like now being goofy and being a nerd is like vogue right now.
It is
with all
post
this
lockdown.
With all this sci-fi stuff, you've got like people playing like Dungeons and Dragons. You're like, wait, what? You're playing Dungeons and Dragons? You're playing tabletop RPG games, and you're like, yeah, I played it during lockdown. I saw someone on YouTube doing it, and I'm like, but you didn't like sci-fi growing up, but like, yeah, but it's quite interesting, and I think like. If first saying like HBO Rome is my favorite cult TV show, I'd then have to then say Game of Thrones, because it kind of like opened the door to like sci-fi fantasy. Like Lord of the Rings like pushed the door, but it was like a film and people really loved the film.
Well, was there really a big fantasy series or movie or TV show before that? I can only really think of Conan the Barbarian before Lord of the Rings.
Fantasy.
I feel like there must be one really obvious staring us in the face.
Yeah, I think there was, but I think they just wasn't as successful.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings won Oscars, you know. That
and
put
like
it out
even made
mainstream.
loads and loads of money. And then I think like
oh yeah,
HBO and like Warner Brothers were rolling in it and were like, you know what? Who's this guy? The guy who's writing like a Song of Ice and Fire, George R. R. Martin, and then picking his work and then launching that. And I think it made it cool to be interested in swords and dragons and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, and also they put lots of sex scenes in.
And violence. It's like what grabs an audience more than sex and violence?
You hit all the buttons, you know. And there's a thing that Game of Thrones created. I can't remember the name of it. Basically, when characters need to explain boring plot details or stuff, or they're politicking, they basically do it in a sex scene. So, like, for example, Peter Baelish is at the brothel, and there's these two female characters that are practicing for their customers, and Peter Baelish is just basically doing a monologue, but kind of explaining to him his plans of how to woo Catelyn Stark and basically like make his way to the top. You know, and if he did that any other time, audience members might drop off and lose their concentration. But because there's eye candy, because you're watching these two hookers like do their stuff, you're like, well, I'm interested. Okay, so we've got, you know, favorite series, TV show. Is there like a movie that you'd say is one of your best of all times?
I think like I have like a lot of movies that I really do like, but I think one that surprised a lot of people is A Knight's Tale.
Oh, with Heath Ledger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why, but it's one of my favorite movies. I can watch that movie over and over and over again. And I think it's partly just down to like, it's a feel-good movie. And I think it's also like the characters are believable. And I think they did get actors, especially seeing where the actors went on to then characters they then went on to play. So you had the guy who plays Vision was in the film. Yeah. The guy who played
King Robert
Baratheon.
Yeah.
You've also
Mark
got
Addy.
the guy who plays the droid in Rogue One.
Really?
Yeah. So the guy who plays the droid in Rogue One was also in A Knight's Tale as well. And I just think, and I think like I just really enjoy like the vibes within the film. And I think it's just so funny that in one of the scenes that I like the most is that they basically go on like a jousting tournament, and they basically come into London and they play like Thin Lizzy, The Boys Are Back in Town. And you think to yourself, wait a second, isn't this supposed to be set like in the 12th century?
I know. And then when they do that dance, you know, when he's trying to woo the maiden fair, then music's kind of mixes a bit of medieval bard music to like
and like the fact that the actual armorer, what she does is put like two Nike ticks on his armor.
How much did Nike pay them for that? Double, because it was two Nike ticks.
And I just
it's
think
fun, isn't it?
it is.
It doesn't take itself too seriously, which I think's really important. I think, thinking about movies, I think one movie series we definitely got to talk about is I don't know why I haven't done this, Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight series. Like, I love it. It's so quotable. And again, Heath Ledger just doing what he does best. And one of his last roles as well, and he won an Oscar for it. But his Joker in The Dark Knight, amazing. Dark Knight Rises is really good. Batman Begins is really good. I'm just so sad that they brought that series to an end, because all the other Batman series that have come afterwards, like Batman vs Superman, the Justice League stuff, I actually kind of like the Batman in it, but still not hitting the same bar of darkness and grittiness that the Dark Knight did. And I think the Batman, Robert Pattinson's one, good, but I felt like they've just come late to the scene. Christopher Nolan's one already hit that really dark vibe, like so quote worthy as well. I'm just like thinking of the stuff that Joker says, like, do you want to know how I got these scars?
And I think the clever thing that he does is that you then backtrack, like, how many people who ended up dying. So basically, he says, like, on television, I've killed Harvey Dent. But in fact, they go to a room and there's actually 2 police officers who are murdered. One who has Harvey as their first name and someone who has Dent as their last name. And then you then remember that he killed the previous commissioner by poisoning him. I think he poisoned his whiskey.
Yeah.
So when he drank it, he died. He blew up, I think, the DA in her car, and then the actual car
was packed with the cards with the Joker.
Yeah, and like at the beginning of the film, when you had those Batman people with guns shooting at the scarecrow.
Yeah, the vigilantes. Yeah.
One of the vigilantes, he hangs and hits the window of like the police station.
Yeah.
And like I think because it's such like I think it's also a long film that people forget the great moments. Like, remember when Batman goes to Hong Kong to arrest that guy from that building?
Yeah, I've always thought that was a bit strange, that scene, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think the fact that there's so much happening in that film that people end up forgetting like the great things that are in it. Like, probably people don't forget this aspect, but remember when they capture the Joker?
Yeah, and they put him in a prison cell.
And the fact that he has
Batman
the wires,
him.
they have the wires as well attached to stop the helicopter that's chasing them as well.
Yeah. Again, I was thinking, like, if you overanalyze any Hollywood movie, but like, how did they know that the police would go down that way, and they'd put the wires, and the helicopter would be at the exact height that they'd be able to do it? But yeah, really cool. And then that whole scene of the Joker, like, he comes out like, hit me, and Batman's going towards him, it's like, is he going to kill him? Is he going to break his one rule? And then, of course, he doesn't, because he's Mr. Goody Two Shoes. So many good iconic scenes. I think The Dark Knight is I steal this quote from one. Rotten Tomatoes describes The Dark Knight as the godfather of superhero movies, because it just hits the nail on the head, and you could take away all the superhero-ness of it, and it'd be such a good movie. Like the transition of Harvey Dent to Two-Face is so tragic but amazing. The ending is so tragic, you know.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I really liked about the film was that it always kept you on edge. Because I think the Harvey Dent's love interest was I think her name was Rachel.
Yeah.
And like they're tied to both bombs. And like she's singing the song, and we're like, okay, so when it gets to the end of the song, it's going to explode. No, it's like she starts the song, boom.
Yeah, she actually dies as well. Yeah. I mean, I'm not familiar with the DC comics, but does she actually die, or is she even a character in them? Yeah,
possibly. I think she might be a character within the actual DC universe. Yeah, but I was just shocked that most films will allow the person to like almost get to the end of the song before they blow up. But no, she starts singing and then it's like boom.
Harvey,
yeah.
I know. Yeah. I've seen The Dark Knight. I might actually go home and watch it tonight because I love it. And when we do that episode, boy, I'm gonna just geek out. I'm gonna be so intense to talk to for that. I just won't shut up.
And like even the ending scene where he has the boats. And it's like each one has like the detonator that basically would blow up the other boat. And like you're thinking to yourself that at least someone would be stupid enough to do it, but then like no.
And then the Joker's like, when he sees it doesn't happen, he's like, it's okay, I've got a detonator. God, you've got to do everything yourself. He's like, Joker's so relatable, honestly. But anyway, we'll save that for when, because like we'll talk about the whole Dark Knight series. So let's look at what's coming up this year, what we've seen in trailers, etc. Some stuff we're excited to talk about. So, I mean, I think we mentioned this on the Mandalorian episode, but we've got to give it some credit here. Like Ashoka.
Yeah.
Oh, that trailer. Oh, yeah. Well done on making that as a good trailer.
Yeah. And I think that the nice thing about it is that, one, they brought one of the guy who does the voice for Thrawn from the Rebels TV series.
Oh, okay.
He's actually playing Thrawn, which is really nice.
Nice.
And what they've done is that they've literally had like all the cast members, I think the major cast members who are survived at the end of Rebels have actually been brought into Ahsoka and have like live action.
Oh, wow,
characters.
that's really cool, actually. So they'll sound the same, whether they'll look the same.
No, I don't. No, I think,
they might be playing different.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. It's kind of like what they did The Last of Us, how like the guy who voiced Joel's brother is just a side character. The person who voiced Ellie's mum in the TV show. I kind of like that. It's a good shout out to the old fans, you know.
And I think my brother was telling me that it's literally going to be done by Dave Filoni. And he's like the guy who did like the Clone Wars and like the major person within Star Wars, similar to like Jon Favreau is the major person in Marvel.
Yeah.
And if I know this correctly, my brother was saying it's rumored that it could be actually factual that Dave Filoni is going to be doing the whole of the Ahsoka, like the directing of it. So one good thing is that as he developed the Clone Wars, then we're not going to have an Ahsoka who's going to be so different from the actual character.
That'll be continuation.
That loved within the. Yeah, and I think
unlike what happened in episode 7 and 9,
the way they butchered Luke Skywalker, like
look how they butchered my boy.
And I think the fact that we need like in the TV series like more like Jedi moments. And I think one of the things they've said is that Ahsoka's episodes, I think, an hour and a half long. If what I read,
that's
correctly.
like Stranger Things.
And I think that they've given it a huge budget, so at least we can see a lot of the Force being used, especially because Ahsoka is a great Jedi. And the fact I think that I really enjoy is that understanding what happened to the Empire, like properly understand what happened to the Empire after the end of episode 7, and are they going to then look into how did it then transition into the First Order, which could be a very good story to tell.
Well, that's good because I like how they're connecting the dots with how the First Order, maybe they'll give some story about Snoke rather than, I mean, obviously he's a clone of Sidious we know now, but I would like to see Snoke develop more on how he became the leader of the First Order, And also, they just killed him off without explaining properly.
Like it's also like the hierarchy concerning like the First Order is also kind of different from the Empire. Like you've got Supreme Leader Snoke, and you don't have like an Emperor. You've got like Kylo Ren, but he's not a Darth at all.
He's just some pissed off teenager. He is really, isn't he? That's why he's kind of different from others.
And I think even like the Knights of Ren, they're not Sith either. But they're dark-sided like Jedi, but they're not actual Sith. So like,
is that the same as these fallen Jedi you'll see in Ashoka?
I believe they're the same thing because the way that Star Wars works is that they count like the Sith and the Jedi as a form of religion. So you can follow the ways of like the Sith, but if you don't like agree to its tenements and practice those tenements, you're not actually a Sith. You're actually just like a dark-sided Jedi. The same way that if someone doesn't follow the Jedi code, but is like a good person who only fights to save others and looks to make the galaxy a safer place, they wouldn't actually be an actual Jedi because they don't follow the actual...
But they'd be grey-sided? The grey side? Like
so
Ashoka?
grey is like if people are caught in the middle who use both sides, the light and the dark, and are more like people who are like...
Switzerland.
Basically, yes.
I'm really sitting on the fence, And
also seeing that the galaxy isn't black and white, that at times you need to get your hands dirty, but also you need to know when to actually stop and also take a break and also realize that the path to the dark side is actually pretty bad and all the stuff you have to do to get power along that side is also bad.
Yeah, the way I see it is like selfishness and selflessness. I think we're kind of taught as we go up that selfishness is inherently bad. Kind of like the dark side. This is so long-winded. But then also, I think being and we're taught that being selfless is good. You should always look after others, be thoughtful of others. But at the same time, I think if you're too selfless, you basically don't do anything for yourself. You're just doing stuff for other people. And that will wither you away. That'll tire you out. You'll always be saying yes to everything. But then sometimes you do need to be selfish. You need to do what's right for you, you know? If you're just constantly doing stuff what's good by other people, not good for yourself, you're declining yourself for the good of others. So in a way, although the Sith are evil, they've got some interesting thoughts about, you know, it's about you, whilst, as Anakin says, the Jedi always think of others, don't they? They're very selfless, which I think is a bad thing. You've got to be a bit of both, just maybe not too much of selfishness. But this isn't a well-being podcast. This is talking about the light side and the dark side of the Force. Yeah,
and I think that potentially with Ahsoka, I think we could probably get, it will be the best Star Wars TV series, well, live action that we would have ever seen. And I think that's my prediction, and that's what I'm hoping for.
If you've jinxed it, I'm coming for you, mate. I'm not bringing a blast, I'm bringing a real gun.
I think, like, if that fails, then there is no hope for Star Wars with Disney. Like, if you've got, like, the main guy directing it, a huge budget, it being extremely long, bringing in a fan favorite character, casting the person who is Rosario Dawson as this character.
Yeah, she's a good actor.
The fans were actually like, you should cast Rosario Dawson because she looks just like her. They listened to the fans, casted her. And as you said, Rosario Dawson is a very good actress.
Oh, that's interesting. Ahsoka, one of the cast members is Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, Darth Vader's going to be in it. Yeah.
Oh, that's sick. Okay, cool. I'm glad that they'll be having links with that. Maybe some flashbacks or something. Because I haven't seen Star Wars Rebels, but I have one scene I've seen over and over again is when Darth Vader finally confronts Ahsoka. Ahsoka fights him a bit, slices open his helmet, almost exactly like what happens in Kenobi. It's like Kenobi copied things. And like he's like, Ahsoka, and Ahsoka just was like, Anakin, blah, blah, blah. He's like, and then she's like, no, Annie, I can't believe you've become this. And he's like, join me, Ashoka. Together we can rule the galaxy. Exactly like he said with Luke. She's like, no. And he's like, then you will die. And he turns on his lightsaber just at that moment. I'm like, that's cool. Good moment. Yeah. But looking forward to that. That will be August 2023. So not long, just 3 months to wait. But holy cow, I cannot wait for that. Okay, on to our next what's coming up on the menu. We have Dune Part 2, which is, based on the first book. We had the Dune Part 1 last year before maybe? Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, 2021. And now we've got Dune Part 2, which will be the second half of the first book, sort of, I guess, depending on how they've done the movie. I'm very excited for this. The trailer came out very recently, a couple of weeks ago, and boy, I can't wait, because they got some new people being introduced, like Princess Irulan.
Mental health is really important to us at Pick Up the Mic, and we love to share resources that can support your mental health. And that's why we are so glad to have today's sponsor. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get you started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then, you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live appointments when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't right for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at an affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/pickupthemic. I've also linked them down below in the description. So again, that's betterhelp.com/pickupthemic, MIC, and start your journey today.
who's played by Florence Pugh. Got some other characters as well. I'm not sure who they are, but we'll see some big ones like the Emperor in the Dune universe, the Padishah Emperor, who I'm not sure who's playing. Oh, I think that's Christopher Walken. Is it Christopher Walken? Is he playing new Emperor? I'll find out.
Okay.
Have you seen the new trailer?
Yeah, I've seen it, and I think it really shows like the direction they want to take the Dune Part 2, and also that it's picking up from like how well the first film was. And I think that's something that's really nice, is that when you actually have like a groundbreaking film and it's like this is the first setting of Dune, that if you then don't follow up with something just as good or something that's better, that it then could like kill the franchise. And I think because if you think about it, like how many famous actors and actresses are in that film, like the budget for that film must be unbelievable. And I think they knocked it out of the park with the first one, especially for those who haven't watched anything to do with Dune. They had an opportunity to get into the universe through that film.
Yeah, because you hadn't. Well, I just literally before we did our podcast, you watched it the night before. And that was good for the episode because you had me and my brother who are just absolute Dune fanatics nerds. But then we also get your perspective on it. And through that, you asked a lot of questions like, are there aliens in the Dune universe?
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think like they could successfully really build up the franchise around this and then branch off into the other books, maybe then do like a HBO TV series on one of the books as well. And I think that and I think that one of the things that your brother and also what you said is that this is the beginning of like sci-fi. So many different sci-fi have taken from Dune to develop themselves, and
Warhammer,
it's like,
Star Wars, and
maybe even bits of like Star Trek as well. And then you think to yourself that why hasn't it been as successful? Like if you look at it, like Lord of the Rings is like the forerunner of like Dungeons and Dragons and that whole universe. It's the forerunner of partly of The Witcher, but not as much.
Game of Thrones
and other fantasy written books. I think even maybe I might be wrong with this. Maybe even the Wheels of Time could be influenced by it. And even if you think about, I think like, did you mention Warhammer? They especially their fantasy realm is partly probably based on some of the stuff that Lord of the Rings
actually the research I did, they did say originally Games Workshop who made Warhammer, sorry, now I'm thinking of Dungeons and Dragons, but Games Workshop who make Warhammer originally used to make figurines for Dungeons and Dragons, which arguably was inspired by J.R. Tolkien's writing, so it's all linked.
And I was thinking like if the progenitor is like huge and everyone's like if you want like fantasy it's Lord of the Rings, and then from that was the offshoot, that then Dune being like the major thing should then have the offshoot and therefore be more famous,
the progenitor of like of certain strings of science fiction, also like blending religion and science fiction in as
like,
well.
I wouldn't be surprised if George Lucas took like the Sith and Star Wars from the Dune universe.
I don't know if it's that obvious about the Sith side, but things like some of the psychic powers, force powers, like being able to read people's minds or control them with your voice. Like in Dune, they call it the voice, whilst in Star Wars they call it Jedi mind tricks, which is just has such a sophisticated name for it, doesn't it? Yeah, and with this second part of the movie coming out, I really want to see how it does compared to Dune Part 1, because is Dune going to be a big series where there's going to be a massive fan base picking up on it like Star Wars does, like so many other shows do, Lord of the Rings, etc. They get these big cult followings. I don't feel like Dune Part 1 maybe got that to an extent. The soundtrack, whilst it was really good and won, like I think it won an Oscar, it didn't have the catchiness of like the Star Wars theme or the Lord of the Rings or Pirates of the Caribbean. But it was really good. It just felt very stylish, but it didn't have like that catchiness. So I'd be keen to see what happens with Part 2. It could be where that cultness starts to kick off. We shall see. Anyway, Dune Part 2's release date is that is going to be... Oh, well, that's quite hard to find, apparently. November 17th, 2023. Okay. So, got that coming up in November when it starts to get dark and cold and miserable. We're starting to feel depressed. You can go watch Dune Part 2. There we go. Lovely. So, next up on our menu is Loki Season 2.
Yes. I think, especially with the end of like Ant-Man and Quantumania, for spoilers here, the fact that the second end credit scene is literally like Loki, and also I forgot what Owen Wilson.
Really?
Owen Wilson's character is
the former TVA guy.
So they basically are back in the early 20th century. It could be the early 20th century, late 19th century, where they have this guy called Victor Timely, who's basically looks exactly like Kang, is basically trying to peddle off this invention, and then Loki's like, "Look at him! That's him! That's the guy I saw." And then Owen Wilson's character's like, "Yeah, but he's just some random guy." And he's like, "No, that's him!
Dude.
That's him!" And then that's how it ends. And just reading up like on the comics is that potentially the Kang that's within the Quantumanium film, the one that's stuck in the shrunken universe, he's the one that becomes Victor Timely, or he was Victor Timely.
Is he the guy? I haven't seen Ant-Man Quantumania. Is he the guy who looks like his face is kind of like strewn on?
No. That's Guardians of the Galaxy. That's the High Evolutionary.
Okay, I still haven't seen Volume 3 either.
So Kang is based... You remember the end of Loki? You had He Who Remains. So the guy...
Yeah.
Jonathan Majors. So basically, his character, when he goes through the whole story that there was himself, who then was like a scientist and was able to then see other versions of himself from different universes. And then they started then warring against each other. And then he then found that huge monster thing that eats anything and it's at the end of the universe.
Yeah.
And used that to then win the war. Basically, what they're saying is that the most powerful of himself, Kang, was then exiled
himself. So what? These multiple
of the multiple Kangs was exiled.
Oh, of course, because of the time variance. Yeah.
Was exiled to like the quantum realm, and then was stuck there. And like in the film, he's trying to leave. So what happens in Ant-Man is that you know that the person who plays the Wasp, her mother was stuck in the quantum realm in Ant-Man 2.
Yeah.
They escape, and like part of their experiments, this is major spoilers here.
Part
of the experiment that they are doing just for fun is like sending messages to the quantum realm, and then Kang picks up on it and then sucks them all to the quantum realm. So the whole thing about it is that they're trying to leave the quantum realm, but so Kang wants to leave, and he's developed an army, but then ends up kind of like dying because like the device that he uses to navigate the quantum realm kind of like explodes and like sucks him in. So then at the end, so you think that potentially he's dead, but then at the end of like the film, you've got Ant-Man, so Paul Rudd's character, who's basically like at the end of the film, he did say that if he wasn't, what that Kang said in the Ant-Man film said that if he doesn't get out of there, there will be hundreds and thousands of him that are a lot worse. And it's better that I escape so I can kill the other versions of myself. So then Paul Rudd's character...
So meta.
So Paul Rudd's character at the end is thinking to himself, should I have just let him go? Or is something bad really going to happen?
Right.
So the first end credit scene is literally like... all his other Kangs, called like who have a Kang council, basically realize that.
Council.
I know it's a really hard word to say. That the actual main Prime Kang has been defeated, so now they can take over the timeline and rule the timeline. So the issue with like Kang is that because he can time jump, and there's multiple versions of himself, you can't really like pinpoint which Kang is which until like. You can see it, you can base it off the comics, but it's hard to see. And it's also hard to see, like, within a specific Kang, what part of his life is he living. So it's kind of like with Doctor Who, that because Doctor Who travels from time to time, he then his previous self can go to the future and go far beyond his future self.
Okay.
So then it's like mind numbing. So like imagine if Morgan,
picture it.
Imagine you, Morgan, like, you go back to the past, but you go back like 3 days to the past, and then your version, yourself that was 3 days ago, then goes to the future. And then if you continually doing that bit by bit by bit, you've literally clouded the timeline or clouded history with yourself. So therefore, your enemies will constantly, which would be you, would constantly have to fight a Morgan.
So I have to stay one step ahead of myself.
Yes.
But by doing that, I'm also being predictable to myself by step.
And then
there's no winning then.
And then the other issue is then imagine
Singularity.
like you then have a whole metaverse full of like so many different dimensions, and you've got other versions of yourself who want to get rid of your version of yourself. So then it's all trippy because like you could fight Kang and defeat him,
but it's just one.
But that's just one, and there could be a Kang that is teleporting from the future next week, or there could be a Kang from the future who's teleporting from the past, who's teleporting to the future tomorrow.
Just like, was it Thanos said, "I'm inevitable"? Well, not really. Kang's inevitable, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's got the full secret to basically just coming back, kind of like a Hydra almost. You know, God, that's crazy. And so Loki and that guy from the TVA, they come in an end credits scene in that movie.
Yeah.
But how does that relate to what was going on in that movie, or is it just literally just another time, like just another part of the Marvel universe?
So another part of the Marvel universe. So they're basically saying that I think they're hinting that the Kang that we think died at the end of Ant-Man, an earlier or later version of himself is in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and that version could have set up the TVA. And that version could be the one that Loki sees as the statue at the end of like Loki season 1.
Oh, what, one of the, what do you call it, the Maker or something? What was it called?
Oh no! Remember, you had the 3 statues, but then at the end you just had Kang.
Yeah,
because
I remember the statues.
Because other Loki, the female Loki, then ended up stabbing and killing Kang. So therefore, the timelines then branched out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is quite complicated.
Yeah,
because my brother was telling me that the issue with Marvel is like you've got dimensions, you've got like universes, you've got realms, and you've got timelines, and they're all used so loosely that fans are like, so you've got like the multiverse, which is spoken in Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. You then got the quantum realm, which then talks also about like dimensions, different dimensions. Then you've got like the Loki series, which talks about different timelines. So then you're asking yourself, like, what is the difference between the 4 of them? And I think like Marvel's going to have to really clear it up to people. Like for Shang-Chi, he lives in his mother is from a different realm. But then I think it's a different realm.
Well, what's the realm?
That's the thing. It's like,
is that just another area of the galaxy or something?
Which what a lot of people are like, we need an understanding of like, what is the difference between all of them? Because, like, what's the difference between different timelines and different universes or different dimensions? Are they the same thing or are they totally different things from each other?
I do like the concept of it, to be honest. Like, it is very complicated.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of, like, scientific theory coming out and, like, lots of what ifs and, like, trying to blend that all together is fascinating. But also gives Marvel a great way of just, they can make movies and contradict what's happened before if they just want to reinvent it and say, this is just Iron Man in a different universe.
Yeah, or potentially if they've killed off a character that fans are upset are dead. Oh, well, this is the one from another universe that is now just moved from that universe to this one. Yeah.
Well, hopefully Loki season 2 will somehow explain it. Yeah, because I've got to admit, I loved Loki season 1. They introduced us to a lot of things like the Time Variance Authority. I thought were very cool, and all these different Lokis, like Crocodile Loki, best character by far. Really good, and I can't wait to see more. And Loki season 2 will be coming out 29th of November, so keep that on your radar along with Dune Part 2. So then we also have Secret Invasion. Now, I don't really know much about this, but I have a feeling you do.
Yes, so basically within the Marvel Universe, the Skrull, so the green-looking, shape-shifting aliens, basically come into the world and start replacing like key figures So they replace like the president of America or like, for example, the head of Shield. If
I knew Donald Trump was replaced by an alien. This just proves it.
And then even like heroes replacing people like in the comics, like Captain America, or replacing Spider-Man, or one of the X-Men, like Wolverine.
But does this necessarily mean that they've killed them off and then replaced them?
So what they do is they don't kill them off. They basically capture them, because I think they still want to know about them and still basically be able to answer questions. So like, for example, there is an amount of knowledge that the copy, so the Skrull version of Captain America, will know. But if he's asked something like, oh, back in the 1950s or in the 1940s, Steve, you should know this, that they can still then go back to Steve Rogers, who's encaged. And basically,
what did you do then?
yeah, basically torture that out of him. Like, what did you do then? And then he could then say that. And I think that's what the whole thing's about. And it's like a spy thriller. And I think that's what I like about it, because it's like, if you remember like Captain America Winter Soldier, how that was really much about like espionage.
Yeah.
This is really full on going to be about espionage. And I think the thing that I really do like about it is that they have Emilia Clarke in it.
Oh, yeah.
They have
Khaleesi, Mother of Dragons.
They have the actress who plays Maria Hill, who was in How I Met Your Mother. You've got I've forgotten what her name is. The actress who was in the Queen Anne film and won an Oscar. What's her name again?
Olivia Colman?
Yes, she's in
Peep Show, more importantly, which that's something you have to do. Have you seen Peep Show?
Yes, I have.
Dude, I should have known this, but I love Peep Show. We'll definitely do an episode. I'm also writing down like future episode ideas.
So she's in it. Then you also have the guy from Bridgerton who's in it, the main guy from Bridgerton, who I believe is also, the paladin from Dungeons and Dragons.
I haven't actually seen the Dungeons and Dragons, but I've heard it's awesome.
Yeah, so he's in it, and you've also got Don Cheadle reprising his role as Rhodey.
Rhodey, okay.
He's in it, and I think Martin Freeman might be in it as well, as his role as the CIA agent.
The CIA guy, right?
And I think like with that cast, like it's going to be something really good, and especially if it's espionage and it's in the vein of like the Winter Soldier. It's really going to be a good. I think it's a film, but I think it might be a TV series. I keep on forgetting. My brother always like, no, Josh, it's not a TV series, it's a film. Or no, it's not a film, it's a TV series.
He's gaslighting you,
but
man.
I believe it's a TV series.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. I feel like these big universes like Marvel, Game of Thrones, because they're getting so expansive, it's becoming like jury service for big famous actors, isn't it? Like sooner or later you're going to star in it. It's just a matter of time. Because like Christian Bale, The Dark Knight, American Psycho, great actor. He said he was very critical of like starring in superhero movies. He said he wouldn't. He thinks superhero movies are taking a lot out of the movie industry. But funny enough, man of his words, he starred as the Butcher in
God Butcher,
Thor: Love and Thunder. So it's just a matter of time. No matter what, you'll end up starring in Marvel or a Game of Thrones adaptation.
Yeah, like even I think people also forget like Brad Pitt was in Deadpool 2.
Was he?
Yeah, so like when he has like his own like group X-Force.
Oh yeah,
and all of them end up. Yeah, he's the invisible guy. Yeah, that people.
I think
forget.
that was just. I don't think they're going to expand on that though. He just like was a little troll moment because he's invisible and just gets electrocuted. I love that. I love that cameo moment. I do like a good cameo that's put in well like that. Do we know when Secret Invasion is being released, or is that the secret?
I think August. I think it's coming out in August.
Secret Invasion. Ooh, June 20.
Wow.
June 21st. Really? So soon? I haven't even seen any trailers for it. Maybe I just haven't been putting my ear down to the grapevine. And some quick fire news as well. So, new Lord of the Rings movie has been announced.
Yeah.
What the hell? This is as big as like hearing that Harry Potter is going to do a TV show that's just remaking it. Like literally Warner Brothers, I don't know how you say it, and New Line, who they originally do the Lord of the Rings movies, are going to bring out some new movies that expands on Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And a key thing to note is this is not done by Amazon. It's not Rings of Power, which means it might be good or means it might be bad. I don't know. But if it's anything like Rings of Power, then it's going to be bad. But wow. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. That is amazing. I'm so glad they're like rejuvenating or bringing back to life like really good, colossally well done stuff. Like, you know, Star Wars had a lot of hope for it, but I think they flopped on it. It was a bit of a sad fart, you know. It just had so much potential and it just kind of puked out a little. But seeing how some other stuff's been done, like Dune being reinvented, and they've done well with that. I've got some high hopes for Lord of the Rings. I think this could work out well.
Yeah.
Any thoughts you have on it?
I think one of the things that they probably will do is try and get like Peter Jackson back on.
Oh yeah.
Either as a director, producer.
Can we just get a round of applause for Peter Jackson just for existing? Anyway, sorry.
And I think like that's a key thing. And I think the issue that Rings of Power had was that they could only use one book. So that, like, I always butcher this book, the Silmarillions.
Silmarillions, I can't pronounce it.
They could only do that book, so they couldn't take anything from the other books.
Why? Because the Tolkien estate?
Yeah. And that's kind of like tied their hands. And they couldn't like get Peter Jackson involved or like Gandalf because that was from the films. They couldn't even like mention like certain names because they weren't like mentioned in the Silmarillion.
So the guy who very clearly seems like Gandalf in Rings of Power, they haven't said his name yet because he can't be called Gandalf.
Yeah, from what I'm reading is that because I don't think it's mentioned in the Silmarillions, but it is Gandalf, I believe. In other books, it's mentioned that person's Gandalf because it's not in the Silmarillions. They can't mention it. But with the Warner Brothers, they have they'll probably give them all access to the books and the previous films. So you probably have like, if it's set in the past, you probably have like a lot of the older characters. They'll probably try and do what they did in The Hobbit for like Orlando Bloom, which kind of looked a bit weird, like when they made him look younger.
Yeah, was that CGI or they just made?
I think it was
makeup.
I think it was CGI, but I think like if it's based in like the later parts, then you could actually do like flashbacks from the films, which I think the fans would love so much.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, they have some flashbacks sort of not the same scenes, but stuff around it that you didn't actually see. That'd be cool having Ian McKellen back in Gandalf's costume. Yeah, I'd be excited for that. I'd be keen to see who does the soundtrack because like Howard Shore aced it, and if it's anything like the Lord of the Rings movies, I'm sold. Like I love Lord of the Rings for the soundtrack, like A Stab in the Dark, the Shire theme. Like I study and work to the Shire theme even today. It's so soothing and relaxing. It just makes me feel innocent and childish, even though I'm 27, going on 28. So yeah, big news there. Also, an announcement with The Boys. The Boys will be getting a movie, which is really good because we've got season 4 coming up soon. Not sure when. I can look up that release date, but they'll be having a movie. And I've got to admit, The Boys is one of, I think, other than the Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight series, The Boys is one of my favorite superhero series because it's just an anti-superhero movie. It's so cynical. It's so realistic and satirical that I just love it. I can't wait for that. And the season 4 release date is... it's not very obvious. Let's see. Expected release date. I'm not sure, actually. I don't know if that information's out there yet, because I guess season 3 only came out, last year, didn't it? So
they're probably sometime this year, but trying to like keep it close to the vest, until they really want to announce it. But as you said with the film, I think if they give them the budget that it deserves, I think it could be very, very successful, especially if they send it to cinema. Because I think one of the things that happens sometimes, like these shows which are on like streaming services, is that if they then try and do like a film for them, they never really reach their peak because they're not released to the cinema. I think like sometimes we forget that not everyone has access to a streaming service or access to that specific streaming service. So like if they released it to cinema and people loved the film, they will then bring people to Amazon Prime. But I think Amazon Prime is like one of the easiest streaming services to get into because you just sign up to Amazon Prime next day delivery, and you've got access to
Yeah,
it
the
anyway.
movies. It's such a winner. As like, what bonuses do you get with Netflix? You just get shows. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that's what Disney has. Disney has nostalgia, and they've literally put a price on it and have coined it. Like,
And the fact Star Wars stuff,
and they bought like all the stuff that like Fox and 20th Century Fox had. So like, they now own the rights to like Titanic, to Avatar. They also own the rights to The Simpsons, Family Guy.
Really? Oh my god!
That's why like Family Guy and The Simpsons are on Disney Plus.
I did not know that. I did not know. So I assume that means Futurama then as well. Oh my
So
goodness.
basically, with the deal that when Disney bought like 20th Century Fox, they just wanted to have the X-Men back within Disney. So then they were like, can we buy the rights? And they're like, no. All right, then we'll just buy 20th Century Fox. So now they own even like all the rights to the Star Wars films, because the original Star Wars films were with 20th Century Fox. So now they have 100% of the rights for all of the Star Wars films. And like the next biggest like box office hits with Titanic and also Avatar as well. Have Marvel, have Star Wars, Indiana Jones. Oh, Indiana Jones is another film that's coming out this year.
Oh yeah, we need to do an episode on that. There you go. I've actually put together quite a big list from just some of the stuff we spoke about.
Yeah, so then when they bought it, they bought like all the Fox shows as well. But what they didn't buy was Fox Sports and Fox News, which you fully understand why they didn't buy Fox News.
Why would they want to buy Fox News?
They would have then had to pay like $750 million in a lawsuit.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah, I remember reading up about that. They knew they were lying about the Trump campaign and all the stuff. Oh, that's so funny. Well, I mean, I feel like we can't talk about that and not talk about the writers' strike that's going on at the moment. I think you know more about it than me. All I know is that Seth MacFarlane's now resigned from Family Guy, which is insane because he is Family Guy, in my opinion, in support and solidarity with the writers. Is there much you could tell me about that?
Yeah, so I think just from like reading up on it and also listening to actors talk about it, like one of the key things I've been listening to is like Cuba Gooding Jr. He's been speaking about it. That the issue is that writers are heavily underpaid, and I think for the content that they produce, that some of them can get like $2 per word, but then for some people it's like, oh, if I write 10,000 words, then that's 20,000. But then if it takes them like half a year to then write 10,000 words, they're then doing it within a syndicate of 3 people, then $20,000 split between 3 people for half a year's work isn't as much.
It's not a wage you can support yourself on.
And this is my personal theory here. This isn't anything to do that I've read, but I think the main issue is that writers, I think, believe that this could be potentially their last major payday before AI comes in.
Well, like ChatGPT could start writing scripts.
Because if you think about it, that the ChatGPT that we have is open access to anybody left, right, and center. With a mega corporation like, let's say, Universal or Disney or Time Warner, which is the company that owns Warner Brothers, or Paramount, which is Viacom, if they're like, you know what, we're going to drop $100 million to make our own AI to write stuff, what would it look like? Like, I've used ChatGPT, and some of the stuff is pretty decent. And that's just like based off like a random idea. If like a major business, even you could potentially have Google, because like you've got Apple TV, they've got an Apple subscription service. We've got YouTube TV.
What, you think they'll bring out their own AI services? You could type.
No. Even Google have already started doing their AI. But I was thinking, like, if you've got money, you could literally have a form of like ChatGPT to like write scripts for you, and then just hire directors to actually do the work. And I think with AI and advancing technologies, writers are starting to see that if we do not strike now and ask for better pay now, they will just say, well, if you want to strike, see ya, goodbye.
Yeah, that'll be automated.
We can basically automate it. And I think Cuba Gooding Jr. said in one of the interviews that he had on a podcast was that the actors and also I think directors could soon follow, and that potentially that this could postpone many of the stuff we've spoken about. Like, they're making a Blade film with Mahershala Ali.
Yeah.
Disney have announced and Marvel announced that's been delayed. they've also got like a Daredevil TV series.
Wait, they're making a new Daredevil TV?
Yeah.
Well, they're remaking the one. That one was really good, though.
That's what we don't know. Are they going to continue on or make something brand new?
I hope they continue it because I love Daredevil.
And I think that's been postponed because of the writer's strike. And I think they listed so many different other shows. So like Succession is being delayed as well. Saturday Night Live is being delayed. And I think they should just pay them because like the amount of money they're getting from the quality of work that they're producing is unbelievable. And I think that this is potentially their last biggest payday because I remember they did a writer's strike maybe in like 2007 or 8 because I remember I was watching like Heroes and Lost and like no, not 2008, I think it was like 2006 they did the writer's strike and like they had to like end so many TV series early and some TV series didn't recover after the writer's strike like Heroes, like the first season of Heroes, I would say, is the best first series of any TV show I have watched apart from HBO Rome. Mm-hmm. But then the following seasons were not as good. And I believe it could have been that...
Why? Because they got different writers on?
Yeah, they had different writers. And like season 2, the beginning was amazing. They had to cut the season short because of the writer's strike. And then after that, season 3, season 4... weren't as anywhere near as the first season. And I think that just pay them. Like having reduction in quality of your content is nothing to, especially when there's so much content to watch that you can't afford not to have quality writing. So I would say just pay the writers because then you're now competing with video games like way than before. And the fact that people aren't watching like TV or streaming services as much as they thought. And I think like how many times have you like been sitting down like watching YouTube shorts or Instagram reels just because you saw one then another like how many people just watch stuff on YouTube now and then don't watch actual television? And I think another major thing is that some of these writers, their shows get the majority of their audience from TV. And I'm thinking to myself like the major thing that could be affecting is that now they've got streaming, that they found a new way to basically skirt money away from writers and from actors and directors as well. Like you saw with Scarlett Johansson when she did the Black Widow film, because it was released in cinema, but majority of it was released early on like Disney Plus.
Right.
So she didn't get paid as much as she should have been because actors don't really get as much money from streams.
Money gets through streaming.
Yeah.
That's true. It's interesting. A new way of exploiting actors, writers, etc. Basically, the whole industry. That is a new issue area coming out. And I'd be really interested to see how AI fits in with all that with ChatGPT. I mean, even looking at, say, some of these AI videos that come out about Balenciaga. I don't know if you guys have seen that on the internet, but or that, what was that Harry Potter tracksuit one? Was that using AI?
And it was just like this random guy who basically just used AI. So you've got like an AI service called Midjourney, and you basically put in a description, it'll draw a picture. And like some of the pictures that it draws, you could think were actual pictures, especially like of really famous people, so they can take a lot from like the internet, and there's a lot of access where they can get from. So so one of the ones I saw was like the Harry Potter cast in like late Soviet Union tracksuits in doing the tracksuit mafia pose, and I was like,
and it's all AI generated.
It's all AI generated.
Deepfake.
And no deep fake at all, just completely just AI just drawn, and then you think to yourself that, when will it get to a stage? And I think that this could happen, that actors sell like the right to their likeness. They basically go into a studio, similar to video games, motion capture, cameras all around, them filling out so many different words and scenes and stuff like that. They then sell that license on to Disney, and then Disney basically say, okay, then this is, let's say, the Ewan McGregor pack that we've received from Ewan McGregor. Let's see, we can fit him into Star Wars or Marvel or X, and then use an AI to then use the content they've got from Ewan McGregor to create a film. And I think
how much money would he get royalties off
and
it?
And that's the thing. And I think that is the potential future. And like, imagine if I think like in 50, 60 years time, especially with like all the stuff with VR, and especially the things that Google are pushing with VR, you could literally create, I think they might do this, like an actor working with Disney could then make a AI storyline and you can play as that actor and that would be your video game. And you can basically build a world that you want.
Based on your face.
Based on, and even like based on like what you want the game to be. Like, oh, I, Morgan, want to play a game as Witcher. And I can actually, with 50 years in the future with VR, literally have this room looking like...
I want to be Thanos. Let's make
basically, yes. You can literally play a game where you decide the story. And you set that I, Morgan, want to be Thanos. And I want to fight X amount of heroes played by X amount of different actors. And this is how it's going to end. And I'm going to be OP and I'm going to be able to just obliterate them. And that's what people will be selling as video games in the future.
God, it's frightening, isn't it? Imagine you could get like as your enemies just people you actually hate in real life. Although they'd probably have to consent to their likeness, but then there's probably ways around that in like the illegal dark shelters of the web. Yeah,
and it's weird because like some of the contracts. Because I remember listening to like some actors about some of the contracts they've signed. Like, oh, you're signing away your likeness and blah, blah, blah for all of eternity in all space of existence and all time. And I'm like, what?
Well, yeah, even actors that are dead. Like the guy who played Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars, there was like ethical questions like, should we be able to CGI them? And then, with Carrie Fisher dying, with the final Star Wars movie, how are they going to, if they're going to do more of these spin-off Star Wars movies and TV shows, how are they going to bring her back? Is that even ethical? Yeah. Will the family get money from that? Maybe they should. Maybe
they should. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. I mean, there's quite a lot to consider with this writer's strike. I didn't think that AI would have a role in replacing writers. I thought being creative and writing and being involved in that sort of stuff is something AI would never really be able to do. But I guess there's certain algorithms. They can pick up data from people, what people like, what stories people like, and what words people click onto. You got to wonder if like politicians were using that.
Yeah, to write speeches. Yeah,
damn it. Yeah. The politicians' speech writers will be gone as well. Soon politicians will just be AI.
Yeah,
soon it will just be AI. Soon it won't even be me. In fact, me and Josh don't actually exist. We're computer generated.
Just full on AIs. That's why none of you have seen us in person.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen the two Maesters in person? No, you haven't. Well, I think that wraps up the year pretty well. We're going to end it on a nice positive note. The wonders of AI. But a shout out to all the writers who are striking out there.
Yeah.
You guys deserve better. And you bring our dreams to life. You help us escape from the real world with your wonderful shows, your wonderful movies, and sometimes your wonderful music, videos and songs that you write for us. So hold on, and I hope you get what you wanted. So we're going to call this year to an end there, even though it's May. But we will be coming back to you, our audience members, with some future episodes. So we've got some ideas from today. HBO's Rome, the Dark Knight series. Star Trek's been on the cards for a while. We need to do that. I agree. I need to get back into watching Picard. I do like it. Indiana Jones, Peep Show. I mean, it's not really a nerdy thing, but God, I love Peep Show. I've just finished rewatching it for like the 7th time. I think Stranger Things would be a good one to talk about, even though that boat's kind of sailed. I still think there was something quite iconic about the most recent series. And we've got Warhammer coming up as well. I mean, that's a biggie. I am such a Warhammer that I cannot wait. But yeah, that is all from the two Maesters here. Just housekeeping. If you haven't clicked the notification button on YouTube or on Spotify, please kick it so you can hear when our next episode's coming out. Subscribe as well so you can hear more about some of the other stuff we're doing, especially with the Pick Up the Mic network that our Lord Jeffrey is hosting for us. Please follow. We'd love all your views and all the follows you can give us. And you've done so much for us this year. We've grown so much over a year. I'm so glad we made it to 26 episodes and more because we haven't released them yet. And also, you know, if you have lots of cash money, please send some our way. Subscribe to our Patreon and send us $1 so I can make some money. Oh, yeah. Thanks, folks. That's all. And have a lovely rest of the year. We'll be back soon.
See you, folks.
See ya.